Good morning. It's Thursday, February 11th, 2021. And welcome to all of you who are watching online, especially my friends and family up in Canada. This morning I'd like to read to you a portion of Psalm 90. It's Psalm 90 verses 1 to 4. Lord, you have been our refuge from one generation to another. Before the mountains were brought forth, or the land and earth were born, from age to age you are God. You turn us back to the dust and say, "Go back, O child of earth." For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past, and like a watch in the night. You know, I chose this particular part of Psalm 90 for two reasons. The first one is about God as our refuge. And I started wondering about that. It's one of those biblical words, God is our refuge, God is our rock, this and that. And I'm wondering, how is God a refuge to you? What does it mean when we say God is a refuge? Is it that God listens to you? Is it that God comforts you, holds you in times of difficulty or sadness and distress or anxiety or trouble? Is it possibly that God is a refuge to you when you need healing? Is God a refuge to you when you need direction, you need wisdom? You need God's Spirit to empower you. So when you hear that word refuge, what does that mean to you? So that's something I just want you to take away today as you ponder Psalm 90, verses 1 to 4. We do gain some comfort when we say that God is a refuge, and that God is eternal. We have this message in verse 2, before the mountains were brought forth, or the land and the earth were born, from age to age you are God. Well, if we're going to seek God as a refuge, it's nice to know that God's around, that God was, God is, and God will be. So we have something solid and secure to hold on to. God has been not only present from before the mountains were born and created, but that God is with us whenever we need that strength or that comfort or that healing or the wisdom. So God, who was and is and will be, is that refuge that we need, that we can turn to. In verse 4, in the second part I chose the psalm this morning, is this whole concept of time. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past. And there are other references in the Bible that, time is like the blink of an eye for God. 1,000 years goes by. And we hear that in this verse 4. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday. I don't know about you, but sometimes patience has been a challenge for me. You know that little saying, "Lord, give me patience and give it to me right now"? Well, I gotta admit, I've been there. And maybe everyone who's watching this has no problem with patience. But I know that in reality, when we seek God's refuge and we seek God's direction, and we seek the change of a situation in our lives, we want it to be dealt with now. But that whole question about time, we don't know God's time in terms of our own life and what plans for our life, where we're heading, what we're doing. There's so many times that we want things to happen. And you'll hear that almost like a cliche, well, it's in God's time. But there is some truth and purpose in that. No matter how much we want to see a baby born tomorrow, it takes time for a baby to be formed and eventually a baby to be born. Even if you're cooking, and a lot of you know online that I like to cook, everything takes patience. No matter how quickly I want that chicken to roast in the oven, it's still going to take time. But time is relevant. In terms of time in our life, we want things to happen now, but then we'll look back at our life and realize, you know what? That extra month or 2 or 5 or that extra year to deal with an issue, I needed that. I didn't feel it at the time, but I needed that. And that's the mystery of God in our life, and the mystery of how time can be formational and can bring healing, and also give us the opportunity to form the right decisions. So, patience, patience is a virtue, yes, I know. And it's something we struggle with. But we need to know that when we seek God's direction and we seek God's comfort, that sometimes time will also heal and bring about a resolution. And patience, while it's not easy, is something we have to work through. So this morning, Psalm 90, verses 1 to 4, God is a refuge for us, and whatever that means to you, again, think about that. What does it mean for God to be a refuge to you? We have the comfort to know that God, who was and is and will be forever, is there for us and is present with us in those moments of refuge, in those moments of decision-making or indecision. And that time, God's time is not our time. And we have to allow God to work with us and allow us to move through whatever it is we're encountering. I'd like to just finish off with a well-known prayer. It's called the Serenity Prayer. And it really does say what I've been talking about. We need patience, but we also need some direction and wisdom to deal with situations in our life, whether it's God's time or whatever the situation is. We need to seek God's guidance and know that God walks with us. So the Serenity Prayer, or at least this version of it. God, grant me the patience to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.